You can't change the date you were born, but your body really can be 10 or 20 years younger by a variety of measures. I'm a leader in the longevity field, and I'll tell you, if you have a business doing north of $1 million a year and you're not spending at least $25,000 a year on being younger, it's because you're bad at math.
Life is mostly uncomfortable if you're doing it right. It's mostly uncomfortable with little sprinkles of bliss and beauty and comfort that we really only get to experience when we get really good at mastering being uncomfortable.
I went too far in one dimension of endurance training, and I beat my body up with high volume of running and CrossFit that I was doing. So that would be my biggest fault, is just I'm obsessed with progress, and I don't take breaks often enough to just kind of reset my nervous system.
This is Vibe Science, a top 100 wellness podcast presented by the Radcast Network, breaking wellness barriers and making health truly personal. Here's your host, Ryan Alford.
Turns out, if you fast too much, you probably won't keep losing weight. In fact, you might stop losing weight. So here's the first thing. It's different for men and women because women hit the wall first. But the first thing is you start getting low quality sleep. So if you just traveled around the world, maybe you ran a marathon because you're a masochist. Yeah, I'm making fun of chronic cardio. Get a motorcycle, dude.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Electric scooter.
Man, I just pissed off everyone, but I'm just kidding. I appreciate if you run a marathon to show you're tough. If you run 50 of them, you're probably not treating your body well.
Your knees hurt.
So we're talking about, I don't know, you were asking me some other stuff there.
No, your success stack, everything. I want to know what's in the.
I'm just, I'm trying to right now just get a picture for people. So, all right, I'm going to back up a little bit. If you're working on what to do in the morning, you do those things, you have breakfast or you don't have breakfast. If you don't have enough breakfast, for women and men, our sleep goes away. If you're tracking your sleep on an Oura Ring or a Whoop or something like that, great. If you're not, let me just pause for a second. Dumbass. At this point, if you're not waking up, getting your heart rate variability readiness score from whatever your tech is, why are you not doing that? It is so cheap. It's so easy. And this tells you whether what you're doing is working in total. Just like you look at your bank statement, at the end of the month or the end of the day and go, I wonder what's going on. Well, if you don't do that, you probably won't have a business for very long. So this is how you track whether the sum of what you're doing is working. So you're going to see your readiness go down and your sleep quality is going to get worse. So over fasting, over keto, or going vegan for a very long period of time, all of those will do that. So first is sleep. Second, for women, they hit it first. They end up having irregular monthly cycles that didn't used to be irregular. For guys, we wake up without a kickstand. And then the thing, if you keep doing it because skipping breakfast makes you a good person, well, then you start shedding hair, and men and women both do that. So should you wake up and skip breakfast? If you could use the benefits of intermittent fasting today, yes. There is no ideal fasting window. It depends on your state today. That's why my book is called Fast This Way. And I've taught about 100,000 people how to change their fast. Women have to actually change it based on their monthly cycle. And all of us have to change it based on our stress levels. So if you worked out real hard and you lifted heavy and you're not going to eat for 48 hours, you probably didn't do yourself any favors, right? So I'm just going to tell you the morning, what'd you do last night? How are you feeling? What's your goals for today? And I tune my morning that way. I do take nootropics just about every single day. I take stress adaptogens. I take a handful of longevity enhancing supplements. By the way, I just got my longevity panels back. This is when you measure your chronological age versus your biological age. And in the last year, I lost another year. That means that even though the calendar advanced a year, I went backwards by 2 years, which is kind of cool. I'm now 12 years younger than my actual age. Hey. This is very confusing, Ryan.
Yeah.
You think about this, the calendar says I'm 51, but my lab tests say I'm 38 or whatever that is, 39, I guess, if it's 12 years. So if I identify as being 39 and people continue to label me without even asking me my my desired in my head age, it's very triggering. You think about it, right? So every time I fill out, my driver's license,
Yeah,
you ask me for like my age and stuff like that. And I feel very judged right now.
Is there a pronoun for that?
Oh man, now I'm
39-ish.
Exactly. And it's one of those things where I actually had a guest on my show a while back, and as someone who is a friend, but is a little bit on the woke side of things. And I said, well, I was filling out your survey, and, it had a spot for, my gender, but it didn't let me identify my age. And that was followed by this long apology for it. And I was kind of laughing because I'm like, look, you can't change the date you were born, but your body really can be 10 or 20 years younger by a variety of measures. And I'm a leader in the longevity field. And I'll tell you, if you have a business doing north of $1 million a year and you're not spending at least $25,000 a year on being younger, it's because you're bad at math. And even if you think it only has a 50% chance of working, you're still crazy for not doing it. Because imagine this. You get another 20 years of lifespan, compound interest for another 20 years. You know what that's going to do for you? Just that alone.
Yeah.
Right. And on top of that, without even looking at, compound interest and the things like that, it's the quality of life, the energy you have for all that time. That's worth it. Because if you want to be able to, be a mom or a dad, you want to be able to be present for your kids and your community and your family. And you want to be able to just do the things that matter in your life. And if you're tired all the time and your body hurts, it sucks. And you're going to yell at your kids, and you're going to fire someone who doesn't need firing, or you're going to, be mean to a partner. It's not necessary. And that's why longevity matters, because you get more now and you're probably going to get a lot more later. But even if you don't, you'll be glad you did it.
Life is mostly uncomfortable if you're doing it right. It's mostly uncomfortable with little sprinkles of bliss and beauty and comfort that we really only get to experience when we get really good at mastering being uncomfortable. And you think there's a lot of ways to experience discomfort, and a lot of us experience it just in the flow of our everyday life. But you think of discomfort, you immediately go like, an image of David Goggins running for 45 miles on broken ankles comes to mind, and you're like, oh fuck, that's discomfort? Holy shit. It's like, yeah, that's one version of it. Getting into an ice tub, doing 90 minutes of hot yoga where you feel like you're literally going to combust. Doing an ayahuasca ceremony. These are all various forms of discomfort, but the one that we don't really spend enough time thinking about, talking about, understanding is the discomfort of our own emotional energy, the energies that move through us, the bad feelings we have about ourselves, the sadness, the grief, the shame, the guilt, all of these things that are also much subtler forms of discomfort, but it's still discomfort. And it's actually this discomfort which causes us to be reactionary, to lash out, to make a rash decision, do something that fucking causes damage or wreaks havoc in our relationships. And so the more we can master ourselves into feeling that stuff, because I've been meditating now for just about 10 years, every single day. I'm a different human being, and I still feel shit. I still feel heavy emotions. I still have emotional suffering. I still feel that stuff because I'm a human being. And until I leave this body, it's going to be a part of the deal. And so the only option I have, because we're never going to get to a point, you see these love and light people on Instagram, and it's a nice idea, but it's not real. It's not real. We all go, what the fuck are you talking about, love and light? Because it's not real. Your relationship to it can be loving. You can go, I'm not going to push this away, because eventually that's where we've got to get to, is we're not in resistance to what is. So many of us spend our entire lives in resistance to our reality. We're trying to go, I don't want to see it. No, not that. I'm not going to feel that. I'm going to do this. And we never go anywhere, because time is just moving in a circle. It's just moving in a circle. We're just experiencing the same things, the same lessons, the same patterns over and over again until we start to develop ourselves and master ourselves. We create space. I'm a big fan of meditation because it's this opportunity to create space and to tune in to the center point. We're all just this fucking walking mass of energy. Everything is energy. Everything is vibration. It's all just particles of energy in motion constantly. And when you can tune in to the the energy of your own instrument, get really clear on that. That's not diluted by the outside, because there's a lot of shit out here to distract us, to keep us from seeing the truth, seeing the reality. There's a lot of stuff that we can lose ourselves in, always. I was telling a client of mine earlier last week, I said, if we don't meditate, or at least we don't spend time in quiet and stillness, we're just living in a sea of energy and have no idea what's ours, what's theirs, what's real here. So the meditation, or the time spent in quiet and stillness and peace, allows you this opportunity to develop a discernment about what's real. I don't know if this is making sense, but
yes. Oh, it makes a lot of sense.
And so mastering ourselves really comes down to mastering energy, mastering our relationship to ourselves and all things.
You put yourself at the center of a lot of opportunities, potentially, right? Because you get to hear, like things that are happening and plug yourself in where you can add value or you see opportunity, right?
Yep. Yeah. I mean, that's a good point. Is I look at a lot of things I do as multitasking without multitasking. So, for example, tonight, I told you before we jumped on the recording that I have the founder of Cool Down Running coming over to Sauna, and we're going to chat about collaborating on the world's toughest mile and his massive run club. Tonight for recovery, I could do Normatec boots. I could sit by myself on this couch behind me, and I could get some recovery in with Normatec boots. But, we chose to build our home as this hosting and wellness oasis, A, because I enjoy it, but B, like, it's attracting amazing opportunities and amazing people into my life. So no longer do I have to chase. I don't have to go to, some networking events. Our house is this authentic networking event every single night with people coming over here to do Gondrez therapy. So, yeah, I mean, I think the advice from that is think about the things you're doing, and you could go into the gym and you could deadlift, or you could do like some isolated forearm movement. And if you're not a bodybuilder, then, probably the deadlifting is where you're going to get more bang for your buck. So just in everything in life, I look at that as like, am I getting multiple benefits from doing one thing?
Eric, I like to ground things, like for the audience and everything like that. So, a guy like Eric, who's figured out like the healthy habits, you figured out sort of the hub with marketing and all that. Like, what are the inhibitions or bad? Like, what's a bad day for Eric Hinman? Like, obviously it's not, grabbing a beer and drinking too much or like that. So like, what's the bad side? Nobody's got it perfect.
What's Eric doing a cheat day?
What's a cheat day for Eric?
Yeah, I'll tell you guys a funny story. So I have dessert pretty much every night, and it's a healthy dessert. It used to be almond butter, nut butters back in my triathlon days, to the point where I got to eating one full jar of almond butter every single night. But I'm burning 5,000 calories a day during those years, training 3 to 4 hours a day. But
my healthy dessert's peanut M&Ms. I mean, so
I like those too. Then in the last year and a half, I'll have frozen blueberries for a dessert each night. And then I was pouring some maple syrup in there, to sweeten the pot. And then I got to a point where I was just drinking maple syrup because I'm like, what I really like about this is just fucking maple syrup. So why not just drink the maple syrup? And I had blood work done with Blokes, one of the companies I work with.
Yes.
And it came back as pre-diabetic because I was drinking so much maple syrup at night before I went to bed. So I'm like, well, I got to stop doing that.
Did you still have a six-pack?
I still had a six-pack, yeah. But my internal biomarkers were not pleased with all the maple syrup I was consuming. So yeah, I mean, I have a sweet tooth for sure. If I'm out at a restaurant, I'll get dessert. I mean, for me, honestly, one of my great qualities is also a fault in that I'm very type A, and progress is what makes me happy. I have a very tough time, just not doing anything. And, I think that can be a fault sometimes. Like, I don't enjoy going on vacations and just checking out and not doing anything, to the point where, sometimes I will, burn myself out, and I'll overcommit, I'll overdo, I'll overachieve, I'll do too much. And I get to a point where I'm like, fuck, I don't like that anymore. That happened with triathlon, honestly, is that, I took it to the extreme, and I got to a point where, 90% of my workouts I no longer look forward to. I hated it because I went too far in one dimension of endurance training, and I beat my body up with the high volume of running and CrossFit that I was doing. So, that would be my biggest fault, is just, I'm obsessed with progress, and, I don't take breaks often enough to, just kind of reset my nervous system.
Yeah. Yep. There's Abe Lincoln, everything in moderation, including moderation.
Yeah, exactly. It's true.
Well,
you look at some of the healthiest countries, and oftentimes, they're doing everything in moderation. They're walking. They're not like lifting crazy heavy weights. They're not doing marathons. They're walking a lot, and they're not overeating, and they have great friendships, and I really do believe that the healthiest lifestyle is probably a more moderate lifestyle. It's not the way I'm wired, but I think if you want to maximize your lifespan, then probably moderation in most things is going to be your best bet.
Yeah. I know, Chris, you've been to the doctor. I think we're going to talk a little bit about that, more of the psychedelic exposure. But again, I think it's just so important as we continue to highlight, these optimization techniques. Doc, before we transition to that, and I want Chris to talk about some of his experience, like, can you give our audience, like, you just mentioned the testosterone thing, which I think is huge. Guys, get your T tested. You got to. Tested. But there are some other like check boxes, like for people listening, men or women. I don't know if not the biohacking checklist, but the optimization checklist that you would tell people to go through.
Well, number one, your weight, right? Make sure that, and we don't believe in the BMI again, but body mass index, but keeping muscle mass and decreasing body fat, especially the visceral fat, that belly fat. So that's the number one thing. If you maintain good muscle mass, a good weight, and decrease body fat, that's one of the most important things you can do for longevity and wellness. Number two, your sleep. And if you don't track it, you won't know. So tracking your sleep and making sure you optimize your sleep. Number three, exercise, movement, making sure that you stay active, that you lift weights, you lift heavy things. Maintaining muscle mass is important. Then when you go now into more numbers, you want to be sure you check your blood pressure, because that has been associated, anything that's above the range, and ranges switch, right? And you want to check it at different times of the day. But if most of the times your blood pressure is on the upper limit of normal, you have a high risk of having heart disease or stroke, which is the number one killer in our society. Your cholesterol, you want to know what your cholesterol numbers are, but not just the surface cholesterol. We do a full panel looking at all your different subfractions of cholesterol and chronic inflammatory biomarkers to know what your risks are. Iron levels, really important to know if you care about longevity. So all of those things. So at our practice, when we do a blood test, we check 73 different biomarkers. So to answer your question, there's not one single thing we check. You do those things that you can check yourself. The mastering the basics are always nutrition, exercise, and sleep. Those are the three things you can do. Anybody can do on their own. Then you need numbers. Then you check your blood pressure, your cholesterol, your inflammatory biomarkers, then your hormones. Hormones, things like testosterone, your insulin resistance, your thyroid. All of those things are important biomarkers that you need to biohack and to really be the best version of yourself. But if you look at it, you go to your yearly physical exam with your primary care doctor, they don't check all those things. They'll check your blood pressure, your cholesterol, but not everything. So the people who are interested in this, what I like with biohacking, it's empowering the individual into taking care of their own health. You do your research, you follow people like me, like there's so many great doctors, great clinicians talking about this now. Educate yourself, find yourself somebody that you feel comfortable with, monitor your levels. If you don't check your blood, you just don't know what it is. Which one of us has a car that they never change their oils? They never change, do the diagnostic. They never put gas. The car would break down. We treat our body worse than we treat our car.
The content discussed on this show is provided for reference and educational purposes. The content is not an attempt to practice medicine or provide specific medical advice. Always consult your personal physician for medical advice and proper diagnosis.
Thanks for listening. This is Vibe Science. To learn more or watch full episodes, visit vibesciencepodcast.com. Here's to discovering your highest vibe.